Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Welcome to my book launch for my book, The Iboga Experience. It's so nice to see everyone here, and more than just my mum and immediate family. I'll keep this quick so you can all enjoy your weekend. And please forgive me if the internet cuts out. I'm living in Peru and the internet can be quite moody here. So what is Iboga? Iboga is a West African plant medicine found in Gabon, Cameroon, and the Congo Basin area. Traditionally, the shaved and pulverized root bark is consumed in ceremony, and it's common for people to only do one ceremony or initiation in their lifetime. Some people may do two or more, but generally one is enough. Iboga is useful in treating many different conditions, including addiction. In this book, I interviewed people that have cured heroin, cocaine, alcohol, methamphetamine, food, and opiate addiction, as well as depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. Almost all the people interviewed hugely improved their mental health and their life for working with Iboga. So how is Iboga seen in the plant medicine world? Well, Iboga can be seen as the Mount Everest of psychedelics and plant medicines. And this is due to its duration, intensity, and the risks involved in working with it. There's a common myth that 1 in 100 people die whilst working with Iboga. And although Iboga can be dangerous, this number is wildly inaccurate. When Iboga first came to the USA, people battling with long-term addiction issues were the first people to work with it. They were using it in poor health. Unfortunately, the intensity and heart complications that can happen meant many died. However, I interviewed many facilitators, some who have initiated over 1,000 people, and they've never had a death. So that 1 in 100 number is wildly inaccurate. How is Iboga taken in a ceremony? Well, here we have the two most common forms of Iboga used for ceremony. The most common form is Iboga root bark, which is here on the left. It is being dried and prepared in the sun. It will later be crushed and pulverized and served almost as a powder where people can then eat it. The second most common form is Iboga total alkaloid capsules, which is normally called TA for short. This is the full chemical composition of Iboga without the wood fiber or the wood pulp. It's much easier on the stomach and easier to absorb. So what was my experience with Iboga? As some of you may know, my Iboga experience in Gabon in 2018 was easily the hardest thing I've ever done. I worked with Iboga root bark and did a traditional initiation that took just under a month. Before working with Iboga, I was miserable. I had treatment-resistant depression, and about 95 out of 100 thoughts in my head were negative, anxious, and depressive. After working with Iboga, maybe 1 in 200 thoughts that I have are negative or unhelpful thoughts. Now I have peace of mind to sit with these challenging thoughts, question them, find out where they come from, and then disarm them. Normally they happen if I sleep badly, drink alcohol, or get into an argument with someone. That photo on the left is me actually trying to be happy in 2017. I was surprising my mum by returning to Australia for her birthday and genuinely trying to be happy. It's a good snapshot for where I was in life, unhappy. The photo on the right is a standard Tuesday afternoon. I'm pretty stoked with life and very happy. By and large, I'm genuinely very happy and grateful for my life. I'm no longer depressed or miserable. I count Iboga as the single greatest healing and profound transformative experience of my life. It's why I decided to write this book, a 130,000 word book, to give back to the plant that changed my life. The book. So what's this book about? The book took me 2.5 years to write. It started out as a lockdown project that got way out of hand. The book is focused on people's experiences with Iboga and how to work with it safely and optimally. There are 23 interviews in the book. Each interview has something unique, some unique insight, or some wisdom to share. Most of the people interviewed worked with Iboga for non-addiction reasons, for depression, anxiety, feeling lost in life, generally unhappy, or just for their own spiritual curiosity. There was 13 people interviewed for non-addiction reasons and 10 people interviewed that worked with Iboga for addiction reasons. I compiled a summary advice from the interviews at the start of the book, so people looking to work with Iboga could find the book more useful and have immediate practical advice. There are advice sections on how to prepare, how to find a facilitator, essential medical steps to take, how to set intentions, general tips for the experience, and finally, integration advice. It's useful for all plant medicine work, spiritual work, and deeper personal healing work. And I believe that the information in this book will be useful for anyone looking to heal or improve their own life. So where to from here? If you're interested in plant medicines, healing, or just want to help me out, please consider buying the book. It's available on Kindle, paperback, and hardback, but only on Amazon for the time being. The best way to find it is through searching the Iboga Experience on Amazon. Amazon detects if you've been sent there by a link. So I've limited the links I send out to keep old man Amazon happy. I chose self-publishing through Amazon for the higher royalties, as over 50% of the royalties go towards Iboga conservation through the charity Blessings of the Forest. This is a Gabonese-based charity that grows Iboga trees in plantations with local communities in Gabon. They are a great charity doing the best work to help ensure Iboga survives into the future. Also, writing a review is an absolute hero move. To reach organic traction, I need about 30 legitimate reviews. Then Amazon's algorithms magically decide that, oh, this is actually a good book, and it can be recommended more highly. So please consider writing an authentic review if you like the book. Even if you say, you know what, it was a good book, but the author was a dick, I'm happy with that and will be super grateful. My advice, if you want the best of the book and don't plan to work with plant medicines, is to read the introduction and then skip to the interviews. The addiction interviews are especially moving, and the advice section is probably not relevant to you if you don't plan on working with plant medicines anytime soon. Also, I put a link here that I'll email out after the call. So searching for the Iboga Experience is the best way to find the book, but I know having a link can be handy as well. And just to give a brief summary on how I believe Iboga works, and I'm by no means an expert on this, I've just interviewed a lot of people and spoken to a lot of people about it. First of all, no person's Iboga experience is the same, and even people's subsequent experiences are wildly different. Iboga provides a unique and customized healing program for each person working with it, provided they are working respectfully and with a master facilitator. With that said, there are a few common things in people's experiences that came up in many interviews. And these were kind of themes and things that I noticed that, probably happened in half or maybe half of the interviews. The first one is that it provides a reset of the brain's tolerance to drugs and alcohol. I even had to relive my own 17-year-old drinking alcohol for the first time experience at age 26. Not something I'd wish on anyone. For many people, it highlights a blind spot in their psyche, either a memory, characteristic, or behavior they've been suppressing. It then invites them to integrate it and become whole and embody it. Quite a few people interviewed saw the future, and this is a very common experience. I too saw the future, but it was coded. It wasn't clear and it wasn't linear. The things I saw in my experience have come true 5 years later. For many people, they have the opportunity to rebuild their brain and let go of old habits and build new ones. And they can choose which habits they want to help them build their new dream life. It really creates a period of time where the brain is very plastic and very adaptive. So you can kind of create a whole new brain in a certain way. Also, many unhealthy relationships, whether that be with drugs, alcohol, or even people and romantic partners, tend to dissolve rapidly after working with Iboga if they're not for someone's highest good. Iboga can take people to the seat of their trauma or their major trauma of their life and help them make peace with it. I think this is where the ultimate liberation and true healing comes from. So that's my kind of summary of how I think Iboga works. I go into a lot more depth in it in the book, but that's just a broad kind of outline of some common themes and some things that are quite common in people's experiences. And finally, my last attempt to convince you to buy the book. It's a great resource for anyone thinking about plant medicines or working with Iboga in the future. The stories are really interesting and moving. I cried many times during the interviews and editing process. I found the interviews heart-opening and like a free therapy session. Even if you don't plan on working with plant medicines, the stories and general advice will help anyone suffering from anxiety, depression, general unhappiness, feeling lost in life, or addictive behaviors. And finally, if none of those reasons are good enough, you can buy it to blackmail me. There's some juicy stuff in there, especially about my own life. Do with it what you want. If you buy the book, I'm a very happy camper. And finally, I thought I'd open up the space for any questions people have. I will say that I forgot to mention, I don't think everyone should work with Iboga. Maybe 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 100,000 people should work with Iboga. But everyone can learn from those of us crazy enough to work with it and to consume it. So if anyone has any questions, I'm an open book. Feel free to ask them.
I have a question for you, Leo. How did you come to this medicine? Because I've actually never really heard about it until you reached out and shared this. So curious how it came to you. And I know you mentioned some people shouldn't do it. Do you feel like they should lean into the medicine first and feel it before just kind of jumping into it too?
Yeah, so I talk about that a lot in the book of how to know when the time is right to work with this medicine. And my experience is quite different. Like a lot of you, I'd never heard of it before. And like it was not on my radar at all. And I went to Peru in 2016 for the first time to heal IBS, to heal an incurable gut condition. Mm-hmm. And the first time I drank ayahuasca with this intention of fixing my gut, I got this very clear message that I should work with Iboga. Mm-hmm. And, I was like, what the heck is Iboga? I've never heard of this before. It's totally out of my radar. Mm-hmm. Is this normal? Do people get messages in ceremony to go and do things? And so the next morning in the hostel, I went to my friends. I was like, hey, have you guys heard of this thing called like Ibogi, Ebola, like Iboga? And they're like, oh, I think you mean Iboga. It's a West African plant medicine, very similar to ayahuasca. Or it's an African kind of similar thing to ayahuasca, but much more powerful. And that happened in 2016. And so I listened to that message. And then I took 2 years of researching it, finding the right place, making sure I wanted to do it. I made sure I finished my engineering exams and got my master's degree because, I thought maybe I might break my brain and go totally crazy. So good to have a certificate next to my name before I go crazy. But yeah, that's how I found out about it. And I think for most people, broadly speaking, there's lots of other easier alternatives closer to home, whether that be, working with a therapist, starting meditation practice, getting into yoga, working with psilocybin, working with other plant medicines. And then if you really feel a call or feel very strongly about this medicine or have like an addiction issue, then I would recommend considering Iboga.
Lovely. Thank you.